So in this video, I want to talk to you guys about Fedora Linux. What is Fedora Linux? Why is it important to know about it? So this is part of the Red Hat family of Linux. There are so many versions of Linux. You know that by now. We have Debian, we have Ubuntu, we have Kali, we have SUSE, we have 100 different variations of Linux. Fedora is one version of Linux that focuses a lot on security and the newest technology out there. So a lot of open source projects that are being developed find themselves into Fedora. And Fedora is where you want to go and play with new things, the newest things that show up in the market or that shows up on Linux. So you would install Fedora. It's been released twice a year. They release Fedora twice every year. So it has a 6 months life cycle. And then they would support that operating system for maybe 13 months. So Fedora is not your preferred OS if you're planning to put something into production. Like you want to put a workload in production, you want to maybe build a web server or an application server. Fedora is not where to go. But if you want to try the latest technology in Linux, you want to go to Fedora, especially when it comes to security and innovation. It happens first of all on Fedora. And Fedora also is an upstream of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. What do I mean by that? Most of the things that are released online for Fedora will find of themselves, or they'll finally end up in the Red Hat operating system. When Red Hat is planning to release a new OS, it always begins from Fedora, where people bring in their newest technology, or the newest technologies are implemented into Fedora and they are tested. It's part of an upstream of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You don't want to use Fedora for production, like earlier mentioned, but if you look at the way Fedora works, is like the open source community has a bunch of softwares that they want to show the world, right? And so here from the open source, we look at here, number one, they are going to send that technology first to Fedora. When they send it to Fedora, Fedora is where you go play with it. You play with them, and those that they really like in the past would end up becoming part of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And after it's used in Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is a very stable operating system. This is Enterprise Linux, like it's very popular, very stable. It's one of the biggest out there in the marketplace for the corporate world. And once there's your solution or your software finds itself in Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Red Hat also offers support for those, right? Red Hat gives support for those. For those who buy their subscription, they would offer support for it. And after that, it's going to end up also back to the open source space through what we call CentOS Linux. Now, this is what used to happen in the past, but Red Hat changed everything. IBM bought over Red Hat and they changed the cycle. So they started with the open source community, and then from the open source, they went on to Fedora. They came over here at Red Hat, very stable. This is what we all buy and use. And then they gave this one free to the community called CentOS. But Red Hat made some changes after they were bought by IBM. We think IBM did those changes. And they no more give their code to CentOS Linux, which a lot of us use this for production. It was as good as Red Hat. It was the final product. And that pissed off so many people. And this is the new way the deployment takes place. So from the open source community, we end up with Fedora Linux, which I told you it's cutting edge. It's very beautiful. It's about innovation and security, but very unstable. And then now they have created, instead of the CentOS Linux they used to have, or instead of Red Hat as the third place to deploy the stuff that they got from Fedora, they now send it to another piece of software now called CentOS Stream. CentOS Stream is now part of the upstream to Red Hat Linux. It's no more stable. It has a rolling release, so we cannot really trust it to put our production workload. In the past, when we had CentOS Linux, which used to be 100% stable, as good as Red Hat Linux, we could use that for production. Some of us who we're not able to buy licensing for Red Hat could use that. But right now, we now have CentOS Stream. Also full-fledged, it has rolling updates. They just release updates continuously on that. And then finally, after everything is tested and works fine, they make it to reach the final decision called Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is also extremely stable. Many people were not happy about that. But Red Hat also decided that if you're really angry because we took out CentOS, you can go ahead and request for, they will give you about 16 licensing of this one free of charge for you to use. That would be for people like testing the software. You have 15 licensing. But my point is, if you want to learn Linux, you can learn, or you can use Fedora, or you can use CentOS. It's the same thing. These are all RPM-based distribution. But the difference now will depend on stability. So that was a quick introduction in what is Fedora Linux. And I will go ahead in the next video. I'm going to deploy a virtual machine of Fedora Linux and also another machine of CentOS Stream.